Hello, garden friends. Welcome back to the potting shed. Why don't you pull up a chair, pour yourself a warm cup of tea, and just take a deep breath with me? There is a distinct, quiet romance in stepping out your back door in the early morning. The air is still perfectly cool. The morning dew clings to the leaves, and the soil smells rich, dark, and damp. You have a pair of sharp, clean pruners in your hand, and you are stepping out to gather the day's harvest. Just you, the quiet morning, and vibrant, nodding heads of fresh flowers. That image, bringing armloads of fresh blooms into the house to brighten your kitchen counter, or wrapping them in damp brown paper for a neighbour, is the aspirational ideal of a cutting garden. But for so many of us living in urban or suburban spaces, that beautiful dream comes to a screeching halt when we look at our limited backyards. We imagine that growing fresh bouquets requires sprawling acreage, endless rows of tilled earth, and an overwhelming amount of weeding. It can feel like a project meant only for professional flower farmers. But what if I told you that you could achieve that exact same rustic, abundant aesthetic in a space no larger than a standard raised bed? Today, my friends, we are going to explore the micro-cutting garden. By the end of our time together, you will know exactly how to transform a tiny 10-square-foot patch of earth, just 2 feet by 5 feet, into a relentless, continuous flower-producing engine. It's entirely possible, and I am going to walk you through every single step. To demand such high yields from a tiny footprint, we have to understand a fascinating little bit of botanical science called apical dominance. In many plants, the central stem is the dominant one. It naturally wants to grow one single, terminal flower at the very top, set its seeds, and then simply fade away. If we let the plant do this, its life cycle is brief, and our harvest is small. But when we intentionally sever that central stem, a process known as pinching or harvesting, we break that dominance. The plant realizes it needs a new survival plan. When that central stem is cut, the plant responds by sending out multiple side shoots to ensure its reproductive success. This biological imperative is the secret engine of our micro-cutting garden. We focus entirely on cut and come again varieties. The simple rule is, the more you cut, the more the plant produces. This beautiful reciprocal relationship is what allows a mere 10 square feet to yield armloads of fresh flowers from early June all the way through to the first autumn frost. It's nature working with us. Let's start at the very beginning, finding the perfect home for our microgarden. Cut flowers are, with very few exceptions, absolute sun worshippers. To achieve strong, straight stems that stand tall in a vase, your 10-square-foot plot needs a minimum of 6 to 8 hours of direct, unobstructed sunlight every day. If they get less than that, the plants will become leggy, stretching weakly toward the light, which gives you floppy bouquets. Take a weekend to quietly observe the sun's path across your yard. For a space this small, I highly recommend building a raised bed. A simple frame made of untreated cedar or corrugated metal, raised about 12 to 18 inches off the ground, works wonders. It gives us total control over the soil quality, but more importantly, it provides perfect drainage. High-yield flowers absolutely detest having wet roots. A raised bed ensures that excess water drains away rapidly. Plus, it brings the base of the plants closer to your waist, making those early morning harvests so much more comfortable. In a 10-square-foot garden, we cannot rely on native, unamended dirt. Think of the soil as the battery that powers our continuous bloom. We need a mix that drains perfectly, yet holds enough moisture for the hot summer months. My favourite recipe is 50% high-quality topsoil for structural anchoring, 30% rich organic compost to feed the plants, 10% cocoa coir for moisture retention, and 10% perlite or pumice for vital root aeration. Mix in a handful of bone meal to encourage vigorous blooming. Imagine plunging your hands into that freshly mixed soil. It should feel incredibly dark, crumbly and light, falling easily through your fingers. It smells like a damp forest floor, earthy, rich, and full of life. When you squeeze a handful, it should hold together slightly, but crumble apart with a gentle poke. By creating this premium environment, you are giving your plants the perfect, luxurious foundation they need to push out dozens of blooms every single week. Now for the fun part, choosing our plants. To maximize space, every single flower in this bed must earn its keep. Single-stem flowers, like those giant sunflowers that produce one bloom and then die, are gently banned from our micro-garden. We simply don't have the space for one-hit wonders. Instead, we are going to rely on what I call the Holy Trinity of the cutting garden. These are the relentless bloomers, Zinnias, Cosmos, and the undeniable divas of the garden, Dahlias. Zinnias are the undisputed workhorses of our space. They are fast-growing, incredibly heat-tolerant, and come in the most stunning colours. For a romantic, sophisticated vase, avoid the tiny dwarf bedding zinnias you often see at the hardware store. We need height. Look for the Benares Giant series, which grow 3 to 4 feet tall with massive, ruffled blooms. I also adore the Queen series, like Queen Red Lime, which offers moody, multi-tonal antique colours that look so sophisticated. When your young zinnia seedlings are about 8 to 12 inches tall and have 3 or 4 sets of true leaves, you have to do something that feels a bit scary. Take your pruners and snip the top of the plant right off. It feels so counterintuitive, I know. You might even be cutting off a tiny flower bud. But trust me, this is the pinch we talked about earlier. By doing this, you force that little zinnia to send up 4 to 6 long, strong lateral branches, multiplying your beautiful harvest right from the start. If zinnias are our bold focal points, Cosmos provide the airy, romantic movement. Picture their delicate, bright green, fern-like foliage gently swaying in the afternoon breeze. Their daisy-like blooms seem to dance above the rest of the garden, giving any arrangement a wild, freshly foraged feel. The Double Click series is absolutely magical, producing ruffled, semi-double blooms that look almost like miniature peonies. When the sunlight catches their delicate petals, it is truly a sight to behold. The secret to Cosmos is that they actually thrive on a little neglect. If you plant them in soil that is incredibly rich in nitrogen, they will turn into massive leafy green bushes and forget to give you any flowers at all. So, place them in the spots of your bed where the compost might be a bit thinner. Just like our zinnias, pinch them back when they are a foot tall. They don't need much attention, just a little space to stretch their lacy leaves and reach for the sun. Finally, we have our dahlias. They are the undeniable divas of the micro-garden. They require a bit more effort, more staking, and a closer eye than our zinnias, but they reward you with breathtaking, intricate blooms that will be the crown jewel of your kitchen table. Because they take up a lot of space, we only have room for 2, maybe 3 tubers in our 10 square feet. A variety like café au lait, with its massive blush and mocha dinner plate blooms, is the holy grail of romantic floral design. Dahlias grow from tubers, which look a bit like a bunch of small sweet potatoes. Plant them in the spring after all danger of frost has passed. Lay the tuber horizontally in a 6-inch hole. Now here is a golden rule. Do not water it until you see a green shoot emerge from the soil. Wet soil will rot a sleeping tuber quickly. Also, when you plant it, immediately drive a heavy wooden stake into the ground right next to it. In our tight bed, a summer storm will easily topple a heavy dahlia, so we must support them from day one. Now that we have our plants, how do we fit them all into a 2 by 5 foot space without total chaos? We treat the bed like a living puzzle, using a modified square-foot gardening approach. Imagine your bed divided into a grid of 10 neat squares, each 1 foot by 1 foot. This hyper-organized layout ensures every plant gets the airflow and light it needs, while keeping the roots comfortably snug. It's so satisfying to look down and see everything in its perfect place. In the back row of our 5 squares, we place our tallest plants so they don't cast shadows on the smaller ones. 2 of those squares will hold one magnificent dahlia. The middle square gets our airy cosmos, and the remaining 2 squares house a second dahlia. Moving to the front row, we dedicate 3 squares to our zinnias, planting 2 per square. The remaining 2 squares in the front are reserved for something highly underrated but absolutely essential, our foliage fillers, like fragrant lemon basil. It is such a common mistake to only grow focal flowers, but a beautiful vase needs a canvas. By dedicating space to a foliage filler like lemon basil or cinnamon basil, you bring an incredible, spicy, citrusy scent to your bouquets. Imagine brushing your hands against those basil leaves as you harvest your zinnias. The sweet, herbal fragrance rising up in the warm air is pure joy. These green fillers provide the structural backdrop that makes the bright pinks and creamy whites of your flowers truly pop. With our lovely grid planted, we move into the nurturing phase. Because our plants are tucked in tightly, they will compete for water. A gentle warning here: overhead sprinklers are the enemy of a dense cutting garden. Wet leaves, especially in the evening, are an open invitation to fungal diseases like powdery mildew, which will quickly turn your zinnia leaves a sad, dusty grey. We want to keep the foliage as dry as possible, directing our care straight to the root zone where it belongs. The easiest way to water is by snaking a simple soaker hose or drip tape through the bed. This delivers moisture slowly and deeply. In the heat of July, let the top inch of soil dry out slightly before watering again. This encourages the roots to grow deep down in search of a drink. Around week 5, when you see little buds forming, switch to a gentle liquid organic fertilizer, like fish emulsion, applied at the roots every 2 weeks. This gives them the extra energy they need to keep producing those gorgeous blooms. Don't forget to mulch. Once your seedlings are a few inches tall, carefully lay down a 2-inch layer of organic mulch, like shredded leaves or fine pine bark. This serves a beautiful triple purpose. It suppresses pesky weeds that want to steal water, it locks in the soil's moisture during hot afternoons, and it acts as a barrier, preventing any soil-borne fungal spores from splashing up onto your lower leaves during a heavy rainstorm. It keeps the bed tidy and safe. And now we arrive at the moment we've been waiting for, the harvest. This isn't just a chore, it is a grounding, quiet ritual. Step out into the garden in the cool of the early morning, before 9 o'clock if you can. The water content in the plant stems fluctuates throughout the day. In the early morning, the stems are fully turgid, pumped full of cool water and carbohydrates from the night's rest. If you cut them now, they will stand tall and proud in your vase for days, rather than wilting away by afternoon. Before you make a single cut, ensure you have the right tools. Please, leave the kitchen scissors indoors. Scissors crush the delicate vascular tissue inside the plant's stem, acting like a clamped straw and preventing it from drinking water in the vase. Always use sharp, clean bypass pruners or specialized floral snips. I like to give my blades a quick wipe with a bit of rubbing alcohol before I start, just to ensure I'm not accidentally passing any little ailments from plant to plant. Many of us are a little timid when we first start cutting. We just snip off the top few inches because we don't want to hurt the plant. But this leaves a long, empty stem. Instead, practice the deep cut. Follow the stem of your beautiful flower down, deep into the leafy canopy. Look for a spot where 2 tiny new side branches are emerging from a leaf node. Cut the main stem firmly right above those side shoots. You might be cutting off 18 inches of stem, but it tells the plant to channel all its energy into those new branches. Different flowers tell us when they are ready in different ways. For zinnias, use the wiggle test. Grab the stem a few inches below the flower and gently shake it. If the head flops back and forth like a rag doll, it's not ready. If it holds stiff, cut it. Cosmos should be cut when the buds are just cracking, when you can see the coloured petals unfurling, but it hasn't opened yet. And dahlias? They don't open much once cut. Wait until they are almost fully open, but before the back petals start to feel papery or thin. Then they are perfect. As soon as you snip a flower, the clock starts ticking. Our goal is to keep the stem's vascular system open so it can drink. When I head out, I always bring a clean bucket filled with a few inches of cool water. The moment a stem is cut, I gently strip away all the lower leaves, because foliage left in water will quickly rot and breed bacteria, and plunge it straight into the bucket. Treat them gently and get them into water as swiftly as you can to prevent air from entering the stems. Once your bucket is full of bright colours and fragrant herbs, carry it inside to a cool, dark space. Maybe that's your potting shed, a shady garage, or a cool corner of the kitchen. The flowers have just experienced a bit of a shock, and they need time to rest and condition. Let them sit quietly in their bucket for a few hours, or even overnight. This resting period allows the stems to drink deeply, firming up their petals and stabilizing before we begin the joyful work of arranging. While they rest, let's talk about the water they are drinking. Those little packets of floral food you get at the florist are actually a precise scientific mix. Cut flowers need 3 things: sugar to feed the blooms, since they can no longer photosynthesize, an acidifier to lower the water's pH so it travels up the stem faster, and a biocide to prevent bacteria from growing in that sweet sugar water. Without a biocide, bacteria quickly multiply, clog the ends of the stems, and cause your flowers to droop prematurely. You don't need to buy packets, though. You can make a wonderful floral food right in your kitchen. To 1 quart of tepid water, simply add 1 teaspoon of ordinary sugar to feed the blooms, 1 teaspoon of white vinegar or lemon juice as your acidifier, and exactly 1 single drop of household bleach to keep the water sparkling clean and bacteria-free. It's incredibly simple, and it will dramatically extend the life of your homegrown bouquets. With our flowers perfectly conditioned, the artistic phase begins. For that deeply romantic, garden-gathered aesthetic, try to avoid tall, clear glass vases. they expose crossing stems and slightly murky water, which can break the rustic illusion. Instead, look for opaque vessels. An old vintage stoneware crock, a galvanized French flower bucket, or even a chipped ceramic teapot adds so much character. If the mouth of your vessel is wide, use clear floral tape to make a simple tic-tac-toe grid across the top to hold the stems neatly. Start by criss-crossing your fragrant basil or dusty miller stems to create a green, supportive nest. Next, tuck in your heavy thrillers, those gorgeous dahlias. Place one low near the lip of the vase to anchor the eye, and another slightly higher. Then, weave in clusters of your zinnias. Grouping 2 or 3 of the same colour together creates a beautiful, natural impact. Finally, let the delicate cosmos float tall and wild above the denser flowers, allowing their stems to curve naturally. It looks just like a meadow caught in a jar. Of course, even in an aspirational garden, nature has its challenges. Please remember, pests and wilt are a normal part of the journey. If you see a powdery white dusting on your zinnia leaves, don't panic. That's just powdery mildew caused by humidity and poor airflow. Thin out the dense leaves in the center of the bed to let the wind blow through. You can gently spray the affected leaves with a mix of water, a spoonful of baking soda, and a tiny bit of horticultural oil. It changes the pH on the leaf, making it hard for the fungus to live. You might also find aphids on the tender tips of your dahlias, or wake up to find earwigs have nibbled a petal. This is okay. For aphids, a strong, gentle blast of water from the hose is usually enough to knock them away. For earwigs, which hide during the day, simply roll up a piece of damp corrugated cardboard and lay it near the base of the plant at sunset. In the morning, the earwigs will be sleeping inside. Just pick up the cardboard and pop it into soapy water. Gentle organic observation is all we need to keep balance. A true cutting garden doesn't exist in a static state. It's an ongoing story. To keep this magic alive from spring to frost, we use succession planting. In the autumn, you can tuck tulip bulbs tightly into a corner of this same bed for an early spring harvest. And in mid-July, start a few extra zinnia seeds in small pots on your patio. By late August, when your first zinnias look tired, you can gently pull them, refresh the soil with a little compost, and tuck the new seedlings in to bloom beautifully right through autumn. This 10-square-foot project proves that true abundance does not require acreage. When you stand in your kitchen arranging the week's harvest, you are doing more than just putting flowers in a jar. You are curating a tactile connection to the natural world. The feeling of dirt beneath your fingernails, the crisp snap of the pruners, the quiet joy of watching a tightly wound petal slowly unfold on your dining table. These are the rewards of the micro-garden. It's a beautiful reminder that magic can happen right outside your back door. Thank you so much for spending this quiet time with me today. I would absolutely love to hear what is blooming in your own garden right now, so please leave a comment below. If you enjoyed our time together, feel free to subscribe for more cozy garden chats. Until next time, my friends, happy growing to you all.